Picture this, deep beneath the palace of Knossos, in the heart of ancient Crete, a structure so bewildering and complex that it has haunted human imagination for millennia. The Labyrinth, home to the mythical Minotaur, stands as one of history's most enduring mysteries. But what if these twisting passages and ancient legends are more than just stories? What if they're profound mirrors reflecting our deepest fears, desires, and the very architecture of the human mind? Welcome to Whispers in the Labyrinth, what ancient maze legends reveal about the human psyche, a journey into the shadowy corridors where myth and psychology intertwine. From the moment our ancestors first traced labyrinthine patterns onto stone or earth, they were doing something extraordinary. They were mapping the inner workings of the human experience. These enigmatic structures have served as powerful metaphors across time and culture, symbolizing everything from life's greatest challenges and spiritual pilgrimages to the intricate psychological mazes we all navigate in our quest for meaning. Why do mazes captivate us so deeply? Is it the thrill of the unknown, the promise of discovery, or the silent recognition that, in many ways, our own minds are the most complex labyrinths we will ever encounter? In this exploration, we'll wander through the origins of these ancient designs, from the ritual labyrinths of Minoan Crete to the spiritual pathways of medieval cathedrals. We'll uncover how different cultures have interpreted mazes in astonishingly diverse ways, and we'll delve into the psychological archetypes that thinkers like Carl Jung believed these symbols represent the journey toward wholeness, the confrontation with our inner demons, and the search for the self. Along the way, we'll connect ancient wisdom to modern life, revealing how these age-old metaphors can illuminate your own path through uncertainty, growth, and self-discovery. So join me as we follow the whispers in the labyrinth, unlocking secrets that have been encoded in myth and stone for thousands of years, waiting just beyond the next turn. Imagine the legendary craftsman Mandalas, commissioned by King Minos of Crete to construct a prison so impossibly complex that the monstrous Minotaur, a creature born of shame and rage, could never escape. This wasn't just a building, it was a masterpiece of psychological warfare, a stone puzzle designed to confound and terrify. The very word labyrinth likely derives from the Minoan labyrinth, or double-headed axe, a powerful religious symbol carved into the palace walls, suggesting this structure was deeply intertwined with ritual and power. But the myth is only the beginning. Archaeologists have unearthed fascinating clues, like Bronze Age coins from Knossos etched with intricate labyrinth patterns, and clay tablets bearing the same seven-circuit design. These weren't mere blueprints. They were potent symbols, perhaps carried as talismans or used in ceremonies, indicating that the labyrinth's purpose was as much spiritual as it was punitive. This idea of the maze as a spiritual tool extends far beyond Crete. Historian Joseph Campbell saw in these patterns a universal archetype, what he called the hero's journey. He argued that the labyrinth is a metaphor for the difficult path we all must walk towards self-discovery and transformation. It's a journey into the unknown depths of our own psyche, where we must confront our personal minotaurs, our fears, traumas, and shadow selves to emerge reborn and whole. This wasn't an abstract concept. Across ancient civilizations, labyrinths served as physical pathways for initiation and meditation. In classical Greece, initiates might walk a labyrinthine path to symbolize a descent into the underworld and a return with new wisdom. Centuries later, across medieval Europe, people would cut elaborate turf mazes into village greens. These weren't puzzles to get lost in, but rather single-path circuits used for rituals, pilgrimages, and even playful dances, weaving the sacred into the fabric of daily life. Perhaps no story captures the labyrinth's dual nature, as both a trap and a crucible for growth, better than the tale of Theseus and Ariadne. The hero Theseus doesn't just bullishly charge in. His success hinges on two very human tools, courage and cleverness. But crucially, he doesn't do it alone. Ariadne provides the thread, an elegant symbol of intuition, guidance, and the connections that help us find our way when we feel most lost. Her thread represents the thin, vital line of hope and memory that can lead us back to ourselves after we've ventured into the darkest parts of our minds. The maze in this ancient story becomes a powerful metaphor for navigating life's most daunting challenges. It requires us to be brave in the face of the unknown, to think strategically when confronted with dead ends, and to accept help when it's offered. So consider this: when you look at an ancient labyrinth design, are you seeing a simple pattern or a map? A map that might reflect the intricate, often confusing, but ultimately navigable pathways of your own inner world. Yet the symbolism of the labyrinth takes a dramatically different form when we journey to the deserts of the American Southwest. For the Hopi people, the Mother Earth symbol, or Tupuat, is a profound ritual maze. It depicts a square labyrinth with a single, winding path that represents the journey from birth to death and into the spiritual underworld. Unlike the Greek myth of a forced entrapment, the Hopi labyrinth is a voluntary, meditative path walked during ceremonies. It symbolizes the belief that life, while sometimes confusing, is not a trap to be escaped but a sacred, cyclical journey to be understood and honored. This contrast reveals a fundamental truth. The same structure can hold entirely opposite meanings, one of fear and conquest, the other of harmony and acceptance, showing how culture shapes our deepest symbols. Venture further into Europe's great Gothic cathedrals, and you will find another transformative labyrinth. The most famous, laid into the floor of Chartres Cathedral in France around the year 1200, was never meant to be a puzzle. It is a universal path, a single, 11-circuit route that pilgrims would walk on their knees as a substitute for an actual pilgrimage to Jerusalem. This physical act of devotion was a powerful metaphor for the twisting, challenging, but ultimately guided path of the Christian faith toward salvation and enlightenment. The very act of walking it, step by deliberate step, was a form of moving meditation, a way to quiet the mind and focus the soul on a higher purpose. It turned the vast, awe-inspiring space of the cathedral into a personal, intimate journey of faith. This concept of a guided, meditative path finds a stunning parallel in the ancient Hindu and Buddhist traditions of the mandala. Meaning circle in Sanskrit, a mandala is a complex geometric design, often square with 4 gates and a central point, that represents the entire universe. Creating a mandala with colored sands is a meticulous, days-long meditation for Tibetan monks, a process of focusing the mind and embodying impermanence, as the beautiful finished work is then swept away and offered to a river. Walking a meditator's gaze along the intricate paths of the mandala toward its center mirrors the labyrinth walk, a journey from the outer chaos of the world to the inner peace and order of the true self. It is a cosmic map for navigating the psyche. Even the art of landscape design became a medium for maze symbolism. The classical Chinese garden, such as those in Suzhou, was deliberately designed with winding pathways, hidden pavilions, and sudden openings. This was not to confuse but to embody the Taoist principle of balance, the harmonious interplay between the known and unknown, the visible and hidden. A stroll through such a garden was a philosophical exercise, teaching the visitor to appreciate the beauty of the journey itself rather than rushing toward a destination, to find harmony in the unexpected turn. Perhaps one of the most profound and unique expressions of this universal human impulse is found in the Aboriginal Australian concept of songlines. These are not physical mazes but intricate oral maps of the landscape, woven into ancient songs, stories, and dances. Each song describes a path across the desert, noting landmarks, waterholes, and sacred sites, effectively creating a navigational labyrinth sung into existence. To know the song is to be able to travel vast distances across seemingly featureless terrain. But these songlines are far more than just directions. They are a mythological map recounting the journeys of ancestral creator beings during the dreamtime. They fuse navigation, law, history, and spirituality into one, showing that the most enduring labyrinths are those we hold in our minds and hearts, guiding us through both physical and spiritual worlds. As the anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss observed, myths and the symbols within them are a language, a way for a culture to speak its deepest values and fears into existence. The maze is one of humanity's most powerful words in that language. From the terror of the Minotaur to the peace of the Mandala, from the stone floors of Chartres to the sung paths of the outback, these intricate patterns reveal a universal quest. We all seek to make sense of the confusing journey of life, to find patterns in the chaos, and to believe that however winding the path, it leads toward meaning. So what about your own life? Does your culture or personal experience have a symbol, a story, a practice, even a familiar place that acts as your labyrinth, helping you navigate complexity and find your center? This universal human fascination with mazes, from the sacred songlines to the serene Taoist gardens, points toward something deeper than cultural expression. It hints at a fundamental blueprint of the human mind itself. This is where the pioneering work of Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung offers a profound key to understanding why these symbols resonate so powerfully across time and space. Jung introduced the concept of the collective unconscious, a kind of psychic inheritance shared by all humanity, a deep well of universal patterns and predispositions he called archetypes. And within this shared psychic substrate, the labyrinth emerges again and again as a powerful archetype representing the most crucial journey any of us can undertake, the journey toward individuation, which is Jung's term for the process of integrating all aspects of the psyche to become a whole, authentic self. Jung interpreted mazes and labyrinths as perfect metaphors for the intricate, often confusing pathways of our inner world. He saw the winding, twisting path as the difficult process of navigating our conscious and unconscious minds. The center of the labyrinth, then, isn't just a physical destination. It symbolizes the core of our being, the self with a capital S, the point of complete integration and psychological wholeness. But to reach that center, we must first confront what Jung termed the shadow. These are the parts of ourselves we repress, deny, or find unacceptable, our hidden fears, shames, and primal instincts. In the language of myth, this is the Minotaur waiting in the heart of the maze. Jung argued that we don't achieve wholeness by slaying this inner beast, but by facing it, acknowledging it, and ultimately integrating its energy into our conscious personality. The labyrinth, therefore, is not a prison but a sacred space for this essential confrontation. This is where the labyrinth archetype beautifully merges with another of Jung's key concepts, the mandala. For Jung, mandalas, those concentric circular designs found in so many spiritual traditions, were symbols of the psyche's inherent urge toward order and centering. He noticed that his patients would often spontaneously draw mandala-like patterns during times of intense personal growth or psychological distress, as if the mind was intuitively trying to create harmony out of chaos. He came to see the labyrinth, particularly the classical unicursal form with a single path winding to a center, as a kind of walking mandala. The act of walking the path becomes a moving meditation, a physical enactment of the psyche's journey from a state of fragmentation and conflict toward a state of balance, peace, and centeredness. The path itself provides the structure, forcing a slowing down, a focusing of attention that quietens the noise of the ego and allows deeper, unconscious material to surface in a safe, contained way. This Jungian understanding has moved far beyond theory and into practical, modern therapeutic applications. Today, labyrinth walking is used in hospitals, wellness centers, and therapy practices as a powerful tool for mindfulness and stress reduction. The physical act of walking the path engages the body, which can help ground individuals who are stuck in anxious loops of thought. The single path eliminates the need for decision-making, allowing the walker to surrender control and simply be present with each step. This can be profoundly helpful for those dealing with anxiety, grief, or PTSD, providing a tangible framework for processing difficult emotions without becoming overwhelmed. There are countless case studies of individuals finding clarity through this practice. A cancer patient walking a hospital labyrinth before chemotherapy to find a moment of peace amidst the fear, or an executive using a lunchtime labyrinth walk to break out of a cycle of burnout and regain perspective. It's a modern application of an ancient technology for self-discovery. So what does this mean for you in your own life? You don't need a stone labyrinth in your backyard to engage with this archetype. Have you ever felt lost in the maze of your own thoughts, cycling through worries or regrets without a clear way out? That feeling itself is a glimpse of the labyrinthine nature of the psyche. Understanding this archetype can reframe that experience from one of being trapped to one of being on a path. It invites the questions: what is the Minotaur you need to face? What threat, be it therapy, journaling, a supportive relationship, or your own intuition, can you use to guide you? And perhaps most importantly, can you learn to trust the path itself, with all its twists and turns, as the very process that leads you not to an answer, but to a more complete and authentic version of yourself? This journey into the depths of our own minds, guided by the ancient symbol of the labyrinth, reveals that the ultimate treasure isn't found by escaping the maze, but by fully embracing its transformative passage. Now consider the unsettlingly common experience of finding yourself utterly lost within a maze in your dreams. The walls might shift, the path might dissolve behind you, and a profound sense of anxiety often accompanies the desperate search for an exit. This is no random imagery generated by a sleeping brain. It is a powerful symbolic language spoken by our subconscious, and dream analysts from Sigmund Freud's era to today's researchers see these labyrinthine dreams as direct reflections of our inner psychological state. They often emerge during periods of significant life transition, overwhelming choice, or when we are grappling with our sense of identity and direction in the waking world. The renowned dream researcher Kelly Bulkeley suggests that such dreams act as a kind of psychic processing unit, working through unresolved conflicts and anxieties that our conscious mind may be avoiding. The maze becomes the stage where our deepest struggles play out. The specific details within the dream are crucial to decoding its message. For instance, encountering endless dead ends frequently symbolizes perceived obstacles or feelings of being stuck in a particular area of your life, perhaps in a relationship or a career that offers no clear path forward. Conversely, the immense relief and triumph of finally discovering the maze center is widely interpreted as a sign of self-realization, of reaching a place of core truth and understanding within yourself after a long period of confusion. The very act of walking the path, even without a clear destination, can represent the journey of life itself with all its twists and turns. It's fascinating to note how cultural background deeply colors these interpretations. In a Western individualistic context, a maze dream might be heavily focused on personal achievement and navigating one's own choices, whereas in a more collectivist culture, the same dream could symbolize one's role and navigation within the complex web of family or community expectations. To make this tangible, imagine a person on the cusp of a major career change, perhaps leaving a stable but unfulfilling job to start their own business. In the weeks leading up to their decision, they might repeatedly dream of being in a vast, complex hedge maze. The initial dreams are full of anxiety, fog, and wrong turns, mirroring their fear of making a mistake and the overwhelming number of unknowns. Then one night the dream shifts. They find a simple tool, a map, a compass, or even a length of thread, and they begin to move with more purpose. They may not reach the exit, but the dream's emotional tone has changed from panic to determined focus. This is the Psyche's way of rehearsing, of working through the cognitive and emotional challenges of a major life decision in the safe space of the subconscious, preparing the dreamer for the real-world journey ahead. So the next time you wake from a dream of twisting corridors and puzzling choices, pause for a moment. Instead of dismissing it as a strange nocturnal story, ask yourself what labyrinth you might be navigating in your waking life. Where do you feel lost, confused, or confronted with too many options? What might the hidden Minotaur in your dream represent? A fear you haven't acknowledged, a challenge you've been avoiding. Your dreaming mind is offering you a powerful metaphor, a symbolic snapshot of your inner world's current landscape. By learning to listen to these whispers from the subconscious, you can gain remarkable insight into your own journey, discovering that even in your deepest confusions, your mind is actively, creatively working to find its way. Now let's descend into the very heart of the maze itself, to confront the most famous inhabitant of any labyrinth, the Minotaur. Born from a union of unnatural desire and divine punishment, this creature, half man and half bull, was more than a monster. It was a secret, a living, breathing embodiment of shame so profound that King Minos had it hidden away in a structure designed to be inescapable. The Minotaur isn't just trapped, it is the trap, a physical manifestation of a truth too terrible to see the light of day. And in this brilliant, brutal metaphor, we find one of the most potent psychological mirrors ever created by ancient storytellers. The beast in the center of the maze perfectly symbolizes those aspects of ourselves we lock away deep in the unconscious, our repressed traumas, our raw, untamed instincts, our most volatile emotions and desires that we fear would destroy us or our social standing if they were ever set free. The brilliant mythologist Joseph Campbell saw this story as the ultimate parable for the hero's journey into the underworld of the self. He taught that we all have a Minotaur lurking within the labyrinth of our own psyche. It represents our shadow, a term popularized by Carl Jung to describe the parts of our personality we disown, reject, and attempt to bury. This isn't necessarily about being a monster in an evil sense. It can be our rage, our grief, our insecurity, our addiction, or even a potent creative force we are too afraid to harness. The labyrinth, then, is the complex defensive architecture of our mind, the denial, the avoidance strategies, the rationalizations, and the sheer confusion we build around our core wounds to ensure they are never confronted. We become lost in our own defenses, circling the terrifying truth at the center without ever directly facing it. This ancient narrative finds powerful resonance in modern therapeutic practices. Many forms of therapy, from psychoanalysis to cognitive behavioral techniques, involve a process akin to Theseus's quest. The client, with the guiding thread provided by the therapist's questions and support, must venture into their own personal labyrinth. They navigate past the defensive walls and dead ends of memory and habit to finally confront the Minotaur, the root cause of their anxiety, depression, or self-destructive patterns. The goal is not to slay this part of oneself in a violent act of eradication, which would be a form of psychological self-mutilation. The true victory, the modern slaying, is achieved through integration. It is about facing the beast with courage, understanding its origin, acknowledging its power, and ultimately taming it, bringing its energy back into the conscious self where it can be understood and managed. This is how a person struggling with addiction might learn to face the deep-seated pain that fuels their dependency, not by fighting it, but by compassionately understanding it. The enduring power of this myth is etched into centuries of art and literature, constantly reimagined for new generations. Picasso, grappling with his own tumultuous passions and the rising darkness of fascism in Europe, became obsessed with the Minotaur, creating a stunning series of etchings and paintings where the beast is alternately a violent aggressor, a tragic lover, and a bewildered figure of pathos. In his work, the Minotaur is no simple villain. It is a complex symbol of the artist's own brute creative force and the terrifying chaos of the modern world. In contemporary young adult fiction, authors like Rick Riordan retell the myth, framing the labyrinth as a living, shifting entity and the Minotaur as a perpetual challenge, teaching new audiences that the journey through confusion and the confrontation with the other is a fundamental rite of passage. So what does your Minotaur look like? Is it a childhood criticism that still echoes in your mind, holding you back from taking a risk? Is it a grief you've tried to outrun, a jealousy you're ashamed of, or a talent you're afraid to claim? The myth doesn't just invite us to be heroes, it acknowledges how terrifying it is to even enter the maze, but it also offers a blueprint for the journey. We are not meant to go in alone. We need our Ariadne's thread that could be a trusted friend, a therapist, a spiritual practice, or the unwavering voice of our own intuition that connects us to the world outside the maze even as we venture into the darkest parts of ourselves. The story of the Minotaur assures us that the beast, once faced, loses its power to hold us captive, and the labyrinth itself transforms from a prison of fear into a map of hard-won self-knowledge. But the brilliance of Ariadne's thread lies in its beautiful simplicity. It isn't a magic sword or a divine shield. It's a humble, practical tool. This very simplicity makes it one of the most relatable and powerful symbols in all of mythology. It represents the idea that we don't always need grand, heroic solutions to navigate our most complex problems. Sometimes, the key to finding our way is a single, slender connection to something stable and true, a connection we might already possess without even realizing it. In the context of the myth, it is Ariadne's cleverness and foresight that provides the thread, suggesting that this guidance often comes from an external source of wisdom and compassion. Archaeologist and scholar Marija Gimbutas spoke extensively about such symbols in ancient goddess cultures, noting that objects like threads and spindles were often associated with fate, knowledge, and the interconnectedness of life, emphasizing that guidance has always been a vital part of the human journey. This ancient symbol finds a direct and powerful parallel in modern psychology. The therapeutic process is, in many ways, the modern embodiment of Ariadne's thread. A therapist provides a steady, reliable connection to a rational and compassionate perspective as an individual ventures into the labyrinth of their own unconscious, past traumas or destructive thought patterns. The therapist doesn't walk the path for the client. Instead, they hold the end of the thread, offering a safe tether to the present reality, ensuring that no matter how deep the exploration goes, the client is not alone and can always find their way back to a place of safety and integration. This thread is also spun from self-awareness, the practice of mindfulness or journaling that allows us to trace our emotional reactions back to their source, creating a map of our inner world so we don't become perpetually lost in our own reactions. Looking back through history, we find this concept of a spiritual guide thread woven into countless rituals and practices. Prayer beads, used in traditions from Catholicism to Islam to Buddhism, act as a physical thread for the fingers to follow, guiding the mind through a cycle of prayer or meditation, providing a tactile anchor to prevent distraction and maintain focus on the divine. Pilgrims on long journeys to sacred sites would often follow well-trodden paths or use guidebooks. These, too, were forms of Ariadne's thread, ensuring their physical and spiritual journey remained on course. Even the intricate patterns of Celtic knotwork, with a single, unbroken line weaving through endless loops, can be seen as a metaphor for the eternal, guiding thread of spirit winding through the complex tapestry of human existence. In our contemporary world, we've created new and innovative versions of this ancient tool. A mindfulness app on your phone can be a thread, offering a guided meditation to pull you out of the anxious maze of your thoughts and back to the calm center of your breath. A goal-setting journal acts as a thread, helping you trace your progress and remember your intentions when daily distractions threaten to lead you astray. A supportive online community or a trusted mentor at work can provide that crucial thread of advice and encouragement when you're navigating the corporate maze or the uncertainties of a new career path. Life coaches frequently use the metaphor of Ariadne's thread directly with their clients, encouraging them to identify what their personal thread is, be it a core value, a supportive relationship, or a deeply held passion, and to consciously use it as a touchstone when making difficult decisions. So let's bring this back to you right here, right now. Think about a time you felt truly lost, confused in the maze of a difficult decision, a personal loss, or a period of overwhelming stress. What was it that finally helped you find your way? Was it the unwavering support of a friend who simply listened without judgment? Was it a piece of wisdom from a book that suddenly made everything click? Was it the quiet voice of your own intuition that you finally learned to trust? That is your Ariadne's thread. It is the tangible or intangible lifeline that connects us to our own strength, our truth, and our support system. By identifying it, we empower ourselves. We realize that we are never truly without a guide, even in the darkest of corridors, because we always have the means to find our way back to ourselves. Picture the quiet, hushed interior of a medieval cathedral, where the only sound is the soft scuff of a pilgrim's feet on worn stone. They are not lost but deeply, intentionally found, tracing the ancient path of a labyrinth laid into the floor. With each deliberate step, the outside world and its cacophony of worries fade away, replaced by a rhythmic, moving meditation. This is not a maze designed to confuse, but a sacred pathway designed to clarify, a physical prayer where the journey itself becomes the destination, guiding the walker step by step toward a spiritual awakening. This profound practice reveals how labyrinths have served for centuries as powerful conduits for divine connection across the world's great faith traditions. In Christianity, the labyrinth became a symbolic substitute for a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, especially during times when such a long and dangerous journey was impossible. The most renowned example, embedded in the floor of Chartres Cathedral near Paris in the 13th century, is an 11-circuit masterpiece of medieval design. Pilgrims would walk its path, often on their knees, as an act of devotion and penance. The winding route to the center was seen as a metaphor for the difficult, twisting path of a Christian life navigating sin and temptation, while the arrival at the central rosette symbolized reaching Jerusalem or achieving unity with God. This was a deeply embodied spirituality. The physical exertion of the walk mirrored the soul's struggle and eventual surrender to divine grace, transforming the vast, echoing space of the cathedral into a personal, intimate journey of faith. This concept of a guided, meditative path finds a stunning parallel in the ancient Eastern traditions of the mandala, meaning circle in Sanskrit. A mandala is a complex geometric design that represents the entire universe and the order within it. For Tibetan Buddhists, the creation of a sand mandala is a days-long, meticulous meditation. Monks painstakingly place millions of colored sand grains to form an intricate, labyrinthine pattern, focusing their minds and embodying the principles of impermanence and non-attachment. Once complete, the beautiful, fragile masterpiece is not preserved. It is ceremoniously swept up and offered to a river, flowing out to bless the world. The process itself is the prayer, a visual and tactile labyrinth walk that teaches the impermanence of all things and the peace found in the present moment. The scholar of religion Mircea Eliade would have seen this as a perfect example of a sacred space that bridges the human and the divine, a symbolic center from which one can comprehend the cosmos. This universal human impulse to create sacred pathways extends far beyond these well-known examples. In Native American traditions, the Hopi people use the Tupuat, or Mother Earth, symbol, a square labyrinth with a single, continuous path. This design is central to their rituals and represents the path of life from birth to death and into the spiritual underworld, emphasizing harmony with nature and the cyclical journey of the soul. In Islamic art and architecture, while representative images are avoided, complex geometric patterns adorn mosques and religious texts. These interlocking, infinitely repeating designs, known as arabesques, are not mere decoration. They are visual labyrinths that symbolize the infinite, unending nature of Allah, inviting the viewer into a state of contemplation and awe at the divine order underlying all creation. Similarly, in Jewish mysticism, the Kabbalistic tree of life, with its 10 sephiroth connected by 22 paths, acts as a profound metaphysical labyrinth. Kabbalists meditate upon this structure as a map of the divine emanations through which God created the world and a guide for the soul's journey back toward its source, a complex spiritual navigation toward enlightenment. So what is the powerful, common thread that connects a monk tracing a sand mandala, a pilgrim walking Chartres, and a Kabbalist contemplating the tree of life? It is the use of the labyrinth as a tool to quiet the conscious, analytical mind and open a doorway to a deeper, more intuitive state of being. The single, unambiguous path eliminates the need for decision-making, allowing the seeker to surrender control and simply be present. The repetitive, winding motion focuses the body and calms the nervous system, making space for insight, revelation, and a profound sense of connection to something greater than oneself. It is a technology of transcendence built not of microchips but of symbol and intention. This invites a deeply personal reflection. You need not be a medieval pilgrim or a trained monk to engage with this ancient practice. How might walking a simple labyrinth, whether one painted on a canvas in a community center or even just traced with a finger on a printed page, enhance your own spiritual or mindfulness practice? Could this act of focused, intentional movement provide a tangible way to navigate a period of confusion, to quiet your anxieties, or to seek answers that logic alone cannot provide? The labyrinth offers a timeless invitation to journey inward by moving forward, and to discover that the path to peace is often found not in a straight line, but in a sacred, winding circle. Now consider the sheer ambition of the ancient Egyptian labyrinth, a structure so immense that the Greek historian Herodotus claimed it surpassed even the pyramids. He described a vast complex near Lake Moeris with 3,000 rooms 1,500 above ground, and an equal number below arranged in a confounding series of courtyards and colonnades that no visitor could navigate without a guide. While its exact location remains one of archaeology's great mysteries, the very description speaks to a monumental goal: to use architecture not just to house the dead or honor the gods, but to physically manifest the overwhelming, incomprehensible nature of the divine and the afterlife. This was engineering in service of emotion, designed to evoke a profound sense of awe, humility, and reverential fear, literally overwhelming the senses to trigger a spiritual experience. This manipulation of space to create specific psychological effects was a sophisticated art. Archaeologist Penelope Reed Doob, in her seminal work on the subject, explains that ancient builders were masters of perception. They understood intuitively what modern psychology confirms, that disorienting someone within a controlled space can fundamentally alter their state of mind. The winding paths weren't just for confusion, they forced a slowing down, a release of linear, goal-oriented thinking. the sudden dead ends created moments of frustration and introspection, while the eventual openings offered bursts of relief and revelation. The very geometry was often symbolic. The circular, unicursal labyrinths found in many cultures mirrored the cosmos, the cycle of life, or the spiraling journey of the soul, making the walker a living participant in a grand cosmological story. Builders even played with acoustics, the echo of footsteps in a stone passage, the whisper of wind through a hedge to heighten the feeling of mystery and immersion, crafting an experience that was as much auditory and emotional as it was visual. The materials chosen for these structures were never arbitrary. They were deeply connected to their purpose and the feelings they aimed to elicit. The cold, enduring stone of underground crypts or temple labyrinths, like those rumored beneath Egyptian pyramids or in Minoan palaces, conveyed permanence, solemnity, and a connection to the underworld, inspiring a kind of sacred dread. In stark contrast, the living, green walls of turf mazes cut into the English countryside, such as the ancient Maze at St. Catherine's Hill, felt organic and cyclical. These were often used for seasonal rituals and dances, their soft grass underfoot and connection to the earth evoking fertility, community, and the renewing cycles of nature. Later, the meticulously clipped hedges of Renaissance gardens, like the famous maze at the Villa Pisani in Italy, were designed for leisure and courtly intrigue. The rustling leaves, the scent of boxwood, and the dappled sunlight created a playful, sensual experience of surprise and discovery for the aristocracy. The purposes of these architectural marvels were as diverse as their designs. Some, like the labyrinthine tombs of the Etruscans or the proposed Egyptian complex, were meant to protect sacred remains from grave robbers, but also to serve as a final, difficult passage for the soul into the afterlife. Others were centers of pilgrimage, like the floor labyrinth at Chartres Cathedral, where the physical challenge of the walk was a form of prayer, and we cannot ignore the element of pure entertainment and power. The Romans created intricate labyrinth mosaics at the entrances to their villas, not to walk through, but to gaze upon, a symbolic display of wealth and intellectual sophistication that greeted every guest. The hedge mazes of 17th century Europe became stages for social games, flirtation, and displays of wit, proving that the emotion these structures were designed to provoke wasn't always reverence. Sometimes it was delight, curiosity, or even the thrill of being gently, safely lost. So what does this ancient artistry of confusion tell us about the human mind? That we are deeply affected by the spaces we inhabit. Spatial disorientation, when framed within a ritual or safe context, can be a powerful tool for breaking down our everyday assumptions and opening us up to new perspectives, whether spiritual, emotional, or intellectual. It forces us to rely on senses other than sight, to trust the path even when the destination is out of view, and to find value in the journey itself. If you were to design your own maze today, what emotional journey would you want to create? Would it be a serene, meditative path to calm a frantic mind, a thrilling puzzle to energize the spirit, or a solemn, winding route to provoke deep contemplation? The choices of path, material, and sound would all become your vocabulary for shaping an experience, proving that these ancient architects were not just builders, but psychologists weaving wonder from stone and earth. Now consider the mind-bending world of M.C. Escher, whose iconic lithograph Relativity presents a labyrinth not of walls, but of staircases that defy all logic, ascending and descending into a dizzying architecture of impossible perspectives. This is no mere optical illusion. It is a profound visual metaphor for the labyrinthine nature of human consciousness itself, where multiple realities and viewpoints can coexist in a single, perplexing moment. Art critic W.J.T. Mitchell argued that such visual labyrinths do more than just depict confusion. They actively recreate the complex, multi-layered experience of being human, forcing the viewer to engage in a constant process of interpretation and reorientation, much like we do when navigating the complicated choices in our own lives. This artistic tradition of using the maze as a central motif stretches back centuries, woven into the very fabric of our storytelling. Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy, written in the 14th century, is perhaps the ultimate literary labyrinth. Dante's journey through the 9 concentric circles of hell, the terraces of purgatory, and the celestial spheres of paradise is a sprawling, meticulously structured maze of moral and spiritual choices. Each circle presents a new psychological and ethical challenge, a fork in the path where the poet must confront the consequences of sin and the nature of redemption. The entire epic is a guided tour of the soul's potential pathways, a cosmic map of the labyrinth we all traverse in our search for meaning and salvation. Centuries later, the labyrinth took on a new psychological complexity in the genre of Gothic literature. Novels like Anne Radcliffe's The Mysteries of Udolpho or the intricate, paranoid plots of many Victorian sensation novels used maze-like narratives full of hidden secrets, mistaken identities, and twisting corridors, both literal and metaphorical, to represent the trapped, often suffocating social and psychological constraints placed upon individuals, particularly women. The haunted castle with its endless passageways became a direct extension of the protagonist's troubled mind, a physical manifestation of societal secrets and repressed desires that needed to be navigated and unraveled for the truth to finally emerge. No modern author, however, has been more obsessed with the idea of the infinite labyrinth than the Argentine writer Jorge Luis Borges. In short stories like The Garden of Forking Paths and The Library of Babel, Borges presents labyrinths not of stone, but of time, information, and possibility. His labyrinth is a universe of endless branching narratives, a library that contains every possible book, or a garden where every choice creates a new, parallel reality. For Borges, the maze was the perfect symbol for a chaotic, incomprehensible universe, and the futile, yet noble, human attempt to find pattern and meaning within it. His work profoundly influenced 20th century thought, presaging our own modern confusion in the digital age, where we are often lost in an endless maze of information and algorithmic choices. This theme powerfully transitioned onto the silver screen, where directors used the visual impact of the maze to symbolize internal psychological turmoil. Stanley Kubrick's The Shining offers the most iconic example. The film's climax does not occur within the haunted Overlook Hotel itself, but outside in its vast, snow-covered hedge maze. As Jack Torrance's sanity completely unravels, he stalks his son Danny through this frozen labyrinth. The maze becomes a chilling externalization of Jack's own fractured psyche, a place of monstrous rage and hopeless entrapment. Danny, in contrast, uses his intelligence and familiarity with the maze layout to outwit his father, mirroring the ancient myth of Theseus using wit and a thread to overcome the monstrous Minotaur. The maze is no longer just a setting, it is an active character representing the darkest corridors of the human mind. Visual artists, too, have repeatedly turned to the Minotaur and the labyrinth to explore their own inner demons and creative struggles. Pablo Picasso, during a period of immense personal and political anxiety in the 1930s, identified deeply with the Minotaur. He created an extensive series of etchings, known as the Vollard Suite, where the mythic beast is depicted as both a violent brute and a vulnerable, tragic figure. Picasso's Minotaur is a complex self-portrait, representing the artist's own raw, untamed creative power, his tumultuous relationships, and his horror at the rising fascist darkness in Europe that seemed to be closing in like the walls of a labyrinth. And in our contemporary era, the maze has found a vibrant new life in the interactive world of video games. From the earliest text-based adventures to modern, sprawling open-world RPGs, game designers have used maze-like levels to engage players' problem-solving skills and create a palpable sense of exploration and tension. The popularity of the entire survival horror genre, with games like Silent Hill or Resident Evil, often hinges on navigating claustrophobic, confusing environments that are deliberately designed to disorient and unsettle the player, making the act of mapping and memorization a core part of the gameplay and the emotional experience. This interactive element transforms the player from a passive observer into an active Theseus, directly engaging with the labyrinth and experiencing the anxiety and triumph of navigation firsthand. So as we reflect on this incredible journey through art and story, from Dante's circles of hell to Kubrick's frozen hedges, a question naturally arises. What piece of art, literature, or film has ever made you feel truly lost in a maze? Was it a novel with a complex, unreliable narrator that forced you to question everything? A film with a non-linear plot that you had to piece together like a puzzle? Or perhaps a painting that drew you into its depths, leaving you wondering how to find your way out? This enduring creative appeal speaks to a universal truth that the maze is one of our most powerful tools for making sense of the confusion within and around us, proving that the whisper of the labyrinth is still clearly heard in every brushstroke, every written word, and every frame of film. There is a unique and deeply satisfying moment of clarity when your pencil finally finds the correct path through a maze puzzle, moving from the frustration of dead ends to the triumphant exit. This simple act is far more than a child's pastime. It is a full-scale workout for the brain, engaging our spatial reasoning, honing our problem-solving strategies, and delivering a potent hit of dopamine when we succeed. This feeling of accomplishment taps into a fundamental human drive to overcome challenges and make order out of chaos, a cognitive itch that we have been scratching for millennia. The very act of navigating a maze, whether on paper or with our whole body, forces the brain to create a mental map, to hold a sequence of turns in working memory, and to constantly update our plan based on new information, all essential skills that extend far beyond the page. The psychological benefits of this kind of focused puzzle solving are profound. The renowned neurologist and author Oliver Sacks often wrote about the brain's remarkable plasticity, its ability to form new connections and pathways throughout our lives. He observed that activities which require intense concentration and navigation, like solving mazes, act as a kind of fertilizer for the brain, stimulating growth and enhancing cognitive reserve. Navigating a maze is a masterclass in executive function, demanding sustained attention to avoid distractions, working memory to remember the paths already tried, and cognitive flexibility to abandon a failed route and devise a new strategy. This mental gymnastics builds perseverance and resilience, teaching us that hitting a dead end is not a failure but a vital piece of information that brings us closer to the solution. This isn't just theoretical. The therapeutic value of puzzles is well documented for reducing stress and improving mental agility. The state of focused concentration required to solve a maze induces a state of flow, a term coined by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi to describe that almost meditative zone where we become fully immersed in an activity, causing everyday anxieties to temporarily fade away. This makes maze solving a valuable tool for mental maintenance, a way to calm an overactive mind and practice focused problem solving in a low-stakes, controlled environment. The process provides a tangible metaphor for life's larger challenges, reinforcing the idea that perseverance and a methodical approach can eventually lead us through the most confusing circumstances. The history of mazes as puzzles is as winding as their paths. While ancient labyrinths were primarily spiritual tools, the idea of the maze as a deliberate puzzle to be solved for entertainment began to flourish in the Renaissance. The elaborate hedge mazes built on the estates of European aristocracy were designed for leisurely confusion and social amusement, a physical game for courtiers. This evolved into the printed puzzles of the 18th and 19th centuries, and then exploded in the 20th century with the mass production of puzzle books. Who didn't grow up with a collection of maze games, from the simple ones in children's placemats to the complex multi-path puzzles in dedicated magazines? Today, this tradition has leaped into the digital age with countless apps and video games. Titles like the classic Labyrinth marble game or modern virtual reality escape rooms translate the ancient appeal of the maze into new interactive formats, offering cognitive training that is both fun and deeply beneficial for brains of all ages. The benefits truly do span a lifetime. For young children, navigating simple mazes is a crucial developmental activity that strengthens fine motor skills, hand-eye coordination, and the foundational understanding of spatial relationships. It teaches them patience and the basic principles of problem solving. For adults, engaging with complex puzzles helps maintain mental sharpness, potentially staving off cognitive decline by keeping neural pathways active and strong. For older adults, studies have shown that regular engagement with puzzles, including mazes, can help maintain memory and processing speed, contributing to a healthier, more agile mind. It is a simple, accessible, and enjoyable form of cognitive exercise that anyone can incorporate into their daily routine. So the next time you find yourself tracing a path with your finger or your eyes, consider what your brain is really doing. It's not just finding a way out of a printed trap, it is rehearsing for life. It is practicing how to stay calm under pressure, how to think several steps ahead, and how to persevere when the solution isn't immediately obvious. How do the puzzles you enjoy, whether they are mazes, crosswords, or strategic games, help you navigate the more complex and unexpected challenges that life throws your way? This practice in focused problem solving provides a safe microcosm to develop skills that are directly transferable to our daily lives, proving that the humble maze is a timeless teacher of mental fortitude. Imagine leaving the noise of the day behind as you step onto a winding path, your pace slowing to match the gentle curves beneath your feet. With each deliberate step, the frantic chatter of the mind begins to quiet. The weight on your shoulders feels a little lighter, and the breath finds its own natural, calming rhythm. This is the experience of walking a therapeutic labyrinth, an ancient practice of moving meditation that has found a powerful and renewed purpose in our modern world, showing up in the most unexpected of places, from the serene gardens of wellness retreats to the quiet courtyards of hospitals and cancer centers. It represents a beautiful fusion of timeless wisdom and contemporary science, offering a simple yet profound tool for navigating the complexities of our inner lives. At its core, labyrinth walking is a form of active mindfulness. Unlike a maze, which is designed to confuse with its choices and dead ends, a labyrinth has a single, unambiguous path that leads you to a center and back out again. This structure is its genius. It eliminates the need for any decision-making. You cannot get lost. This allows the walker to completely surrender the need for control, a primary source of so much of our anxiety. The body engages in a slow, repetitive motion, which helps to ground a racing mind, while the focused attention on the path acts as an anchor to the present moment. It becomes a walking meditation where the goal isn't to reach the end, but to be fully aware for each and every step of the journey. This process can significantly lower cortisol levels, slow a rapid heart rate, and create a state of mental clarity that is often elusive in our hectic lives. The revival of this practice in Western therapeutic settings is greatly credited to the pioneering work of Dr. Lauren Chartres, an author and psychotherapist who brought a replica of the Chartres Cathedral labyrinth to Grace Cathedral in San Francisco in the early 1990s. Her research and advocacy helped demystify the labyrinth, framing it not as a religious artifact but as a spiritual tool with universal, cross-cultural appeal. She and other health experts have documented its benefits for a wide range of psychological challenges. For individuals grappling with PTSD, the predictable, safe path provides a container to process trauma without becoming overwhelmed. For those moving through the intense fog of grief, the rhythmic walking can help unlock emotions that feel stuck, creating a physical outlet for sorrow. And for millions experiencing the quiet drain of burnout, the Labyrinth offers a space to disconnect from digital overload and reconnect with a simpler, more embodied sense of self. The beauty of this tool is in its accessibility and variety. You don't need a stone cathedral. Therapeutic labyrinths come in many forms. Many hospitals and community centers use portable canvas labyrinths that can be rolled out in a gymnasium or meeting hall, allowing for group sessions that foster a powerful sense of shared experience and quiet communion. Others are crafted permanently into outdoor spaces using stones, bricks, or low-growing plants, integrating the practice into a natural setting that enhances the calming effect with fresh air and sunlight. The guidelines for walking are beautifully simple, making it approachable for anyone. Practitioners often suggest setting a gentle intention at the start, perhaps a question you're sitting with or simply a desire to be open. The pace is entirely personal. Some walks are slow and contemplative, while others might be more vigorous, using the movement to work through physical restlessness. The key is to follow your own inner rhythm. The real-world impact of this practice is where its power truly comes to life. Consider a cancer support group that begins its weekly session with a labyrinth walk. For patients in the midst of grueling treatment, consumed by fear and the loss of control over their own bodies, the act of walking this known path can be incredibly empowering. It becomes a metaphor for their journey, a reminder that even though the road is difficult and winding, it has a direction and they are moving through it one step at a time. In a completely different context, forward-thinking corporations are now incorporating labyrinth walks into their leadership retreats and team-building workshops. They find that this shared, silent activity, devoid of phones and agendas, breaks down barriers, reduces interpersonal stress, and fosters a deeper level of empathy and creative thinking among colleagues than any traditional icebreaker ever could. This invites a very personal reflection. In the middle of your own life's complexities, could this ancient practice of walking a single path offer a moment of respite? Could the simple, physical act of putting one foot in front of the other on a predetermined route provide the mental space needed to untangle a difficult decision, to release a pent-up emotion, or to simply remember what it feels like to be calm and centered? The labyrinth doesn't ask for belief, it only asks for participation. It stands as a silent, welcoming testament to the idea that sometimes the way through our internal confusion is not by thinking our way out, but by walking our way through. Yet for all their differences, these two structures share a common root in the human experience of navigating complexity. Labyrinth scholar and historian Jeff Saward, perhaps the world's foremost authority on these patterns, emphasizes that the distinction, while crucial, is also a modern clarification. He points out that historically, the words were often used interchangeably, and it's only in recent centuries that we've drawn this clear symbolic line. The very word labyrinth comes from the ancient Greek labyrinthos, which was associated with the Minoan double-axe symbol, the labris, suggesting a place of initiation and power. Maze, on the other hand, derives from the Middle English word mason, meaning to confuse or bewilder. So even etymologically, their purposes diverge, one implying a sacred journey, the other a state of confusion. This distinction plays out vividly in their real-world designs and purposes. Consider the classic hedge maze at Longleat House in England, a sprawling puzzle of green walls built for amusement and adventure. Its countless dead ends and forking paths are designed to delight and disorient, turning a stroll into a game of strategy and memory. This is the maze as a test of wit, a physical manifestation of life's many choices and the consequences that follow. Contrast this with the great Chartres Cathedral labyrinth laid into the stone floor in the 13th century. This is a unicursal path, a single, uninterrupted line that winds in 11 circuits to a center and back out again. It was never meant to confuse. For medieval pilgrims who could not travel to the Holy Land, walking this path on their knees was the pilgrimage, a profound act of devotion and contemplative prayer. One design is for entertainment and intellectual challenge. The other is for spiritual surrender and inner peace. In our modern language, we see this symbolic split reflected in how we talk about our lives. We speak of being caught in a maze of bureaucracy, overwhelmed by choices and dead ends. We describe a complicated legal case as a labyrinthine process, focusing on its intricate, winding complexity rather than its potential for confusion. Yet the lines do blur. The contemporary rise of secular labyrinth walking for mindfulness has taken the spiritual tool and adapted it for psychological well-being, devoid of religious context. Conversely, escape rooms, a hugely popular modern entertainment, are essentially narrative-driven mazes designed to thrill and challenge groups of friends. They use the puzzle format of a maze but often incorporate the thematic depth and story of a mythical journey, showing how these ancient forms continue to evolve and hybridize in our collective imagination. So what does this mean for you right now in the context of your own journey? Understanding this difference offers a powerful lens for self-reflection. Are you in a season of life that feels more like a maze? One filled with difficult decisions, false starts, and the need for careful strategy and perhaps a map or a guide? Or does your current path feel more like a labyrinth? A predetermined route you must walk with patience and trust, even if you can't see the ultimate destination, focusing on the experience of the journey itself rather than the urgency of the outcome. There is no right answer, only awareness. Recognizing which archetype you are navigating can itself become a kind of Ariadne's thread, offering clarity and perhaps even grace, allowing you to engage with your path, whether multicursal or unicursal, with greater intention and understanding. Yet the most pervasive and perhaps insidious modern mazes are the ones we navigate unconsciously every single day, the algorithmic labyrinths of our digital lives. Cultural thinker Douglas Rushkoff often explores how social media platforms and search engines are engineered as intricate systems of choices, each click leading us down a personalized path that often reinforces our existing beliefs and preferences. These digital ecosystems create what we now call echo chambers or filter bubbles, a maze of information where every turn leads us back to a reflection of ourselves, making it increasingly difficult to encounter challenging ideas or divergent viewpoints. This isn't just a convenience feature, it's a profound reshaping of our psychological and social landscape, a labyrinth where the Minotaur is our own confirmation bias, and the walls are built by lines of code designed to maximize our engagement, often at the cost of our broader perspective. This theme of technological entrapment is powerfully explored in modern dystopian literature and film. Novels like Ernest Cline's Ready Player One present a virtual reality universe called The Oasis, a sprawling digital maze where an entire generation escapes the desolation of the real world. The story itself revolves around solving an elaborate puzzle within this maze, a quest that critiques our growing dependence on virtual spaces for meaning and connection. Similarly, the hit Netflix series Stranger Things masterfully uses the upside down as a psychological and physical maze. This dark mirror dimension isn't just a monster-filled wasteland. It's a terrifying externalization of inner trauma, grief, and the confusing labyrinth of adolescence. Navigating its unpredictable, vine-choked corridors becomes a metaphor for confronting personal and collective demons, proving that the maze archetype remains a potent tool for storytelling that resonates with contemporary anxieties. Beyond narrative, artists and designers are physically building these metaphors into our environment, creating immersive installations that blend ancient symbolism with cutting-edge technology. Team Lab, a renowned international art collective, creates vast, interactive digital exhibitions where visitors wander through rooms filled with endless projections of light and sound that respond to their movement. One walker might cause a ripple of light to cascade across the walls, while another might trigger a bloom of digital flowers, making each person's path through the space entirely unique. These are modern-day light labyrinths, evoking the same awe and introspection as the Chartres Cathedral floor, but through a 21st-century lens. They transform the participant from a passive observer into an active Theseus, co-creating their journey and directly experiencing how their choices shape the reality around them. Even our everyday language and humor are saturated with maze imagery, revealing how deeply this archetype is wired into our thinking. Internet memes frequently depict the frustrating maze of bureaucratic processes, the endless loop of customer service phone trees, or the absurd labyrinth of assembling flat-pack furniture. These shared jokes act as a collective coping mechanism, using the common metaphor of the maze to articulate the universal experience of feeling lost and frustrated by complex systems beyond our control. It's a way of finding humor and solidarity in the confusion, acknowledging that we are all navigating these shared, often absurd, modern-day labyrinths together. This brings us to a deeply personal reflection on the mazes we navigate without even thinking. Consider the daily commute, sitting in traffic, a concrete maze of idling cars where every lane change is a gamble and every exit a potential dead end. How does that constant, low-grade negotiation of space and patience affect your stress levels and mental state by the time you arrive at work or return home? Or think about an endless internet browsing session, falling down a rabbit hole of links and videos where you started by looking up a recipe and an hour later find yourself reading about the history of mountaineering. This digital wandering can feel either like a thrilling adventure of discovery or a disorienting loss of time and focus. These are the unconscious labyrinths of modern life, and their impact on our psyche is constant and profound. They challenge us to ask not just how to escape them, but how to walk through them with greater awareness, perhaps finding our own thread of intention in the midst of the noise. Think about your own life for a moment, not as a straight, predictable highway, but as something far more complex and organic, a vast, living labyrinth. You stand at the entrance, and the path ahead is hidden from view, winding through seasons of joy and periods of profound confusion, with unexpected turns that lead to dead ends one day and breathtaking vistas the next. This is the universal human experience, the labyrinth of life. Embracing this metaphor isn't about resigning ourselves to being perpetually lost. It's about fundamentally shifting our perspective on what it means to navigate existence. It teaches us that the value isn't just in reaching a final destination, but in cultivating the resilience, adaptability, and self-compassion we discover with every step we take through the unknown. This mindset is deeply supported by the principles of positive psychology and modern coaching techniques, which emphasize that growth occurs not in spite of our challenges, but because of them. The winding path forces us to develop problem-solving skills we never knew we had. A sudden dead end becomes a lesson in creative thinking, a necessary detour that reveals a new strength or a different priority. This is where the wisdom of myth becomes incredibly practical. The iconic thinker Joseph Campbell famously said, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." In the language of our labyrinth, This means that the very corridor we're most afraid to walk down, the one that might lead to a difficult conversation, a career change, or confronting a personal flaw, is precisely where our greatest potential for growth is hidden. The monster in the center is often the treasure in disguise, waiting to be integrated. So how do we practically apply this? We adopt the tools of the ancient heroes. We learn to spin our own Ariadne's thread. This thread can take many forms in our modern lives. It's the clarity that comes from setting intentional goals, which act as a guiding line pulling us forward even when the immediate path is obscured. It's the daily practice of mindfulness or journaling, a way to trace our emotional reactions and map the patterns of our inner world so we don't keep circling the same unhelpful thoughts. It's the commitment to embracing uncertainty not as a threat, but as the fertile ground where discovery and innovation are born. We can literally use labyrinth imagery in a journal to map out a personal challenge, drawing the winding path and noting where we feel stuck, where we found a moment of insight, or what our personal Minotaur might represent. This externalization of our internal process can provide remarkable clarity, turning an overwhelming feeling into a navigable map. Countless individuals have used this metaphorical framework to navigate real-world breakthroughs. Someone grappling with a strained relationship might frame the process of reconciliation as walking a labyrinth, understanding that it requires patience, that there will be frustrating turns, but that the center, a place of deeper understanding and connection, is worth the journey. A person recovering from an illness might see their healing not as a linear progression but as a winding path, with days that feel like setbacks but are actually integral parts of the longer route toward wholeness. These stories show us that the labyrinth is more than a story. It's a psychological tool that helps us reframe our struggles from signs of failure into essential parts of a meaningful, transformative journey. Now turn this lens inward. Where in your own life does the path feel particularly tangled right now? Is it in your career where options seem to branch out in countless confusing directions? Is it in a personal relationship where you feel you've hit an emotional dead end? Or is the maze an internal one, built from self-doubt or anxiety, where the walls feel like they're closing in? Simply identifying which part of your life feels the most labyrinthine is the first, powerful step toward navigating it with more grace and less fear. It's an acknowledgement that confusion is not a personal failing, but a natural part of the human experience, and that within its complex design lies the potential for incredible personal discovery. Picture a quiet evening in a local park where a large canvas labyrinth is unfurled on the grass. Dozens of people from all walks of life, neighbors, strangers, families begin to walk its winding path simultaneously. There are no instructions, only a shared, silent understanding. Some walk quickly, others at a crawl, some smile, a few shed quiet tears. Yet despite the lack of conversation, a palpable sense of connection forms, an unspoken bond forged by moving through the same symbolic journey, side by side. This is the power of the shared labyrinth experience, a practice that transforms an ancient tool for personal reflection into a potent catalyst for community, empathy, and collective healing. It demonstrates that while a labyrinth walk can be a deeply personal meditation, doing it as a group creates something entirely new, a shared narrative and a profound sense of belonging that actively counteracts the isolation so prevalent in modern life. The social psychology behind this phenomenon is robust and fascinating. The pioneering sociologist Emile Durkheim coined the term collective effervescence to describe the electric sense of unity and shared identity that emerges when people participate in group rituals. He observed that these shared experiences generate a kind of social electricity that bonds individuals together, making them feel part of something larger than themselves. A community labyrinth walk is a perfect example of this principle in action. While each person walks their own path, they do so within a container of mutual respect and shared intention. This synchronous activity, even in silence, builds a powerful, non-verbal form of trust. You are quite literally walking the same path as the person ahead of and behind you, sharing in the same journey of twists and turns, which fosters a deep, implicit empathy. It breaks down social barriers and reduces the hyper-vigilance we often carry in public spaces, allowing people to let their guard down and be authentically themselves in a safe, supportive environment. This powerful dynamic is being harnessed by diverse communities for remarkable results. In faith communities, walking a labyrinth together after a service or during a holiday can deepen spiritual bonds without the need for words, allowing congregants to process their faith and emotions in a shared, contemplative space. Schools are introducing simple labyrinths on playgrounds or in gyms as a tool for social-emotional learning. Guiding a class of students through a group walk can be a transformative exercise in conflict resolution. It teaches patience as they navigate the single-file path, respect for others' pace, and self-regulation as they manage the frustration of the winding route. The labyrinth becomes a physical metaphor for learning to navigate social dynamics with grace and consideration. The applications extend into the corporate world as well, where forward-thinking companies are moving beyond traditional trust falls and awkward icebreakers. They are incorporating labyrinth workshops into their retreats to foster genuine team building and spark innovation. The act of walking together without the pressure to network or perform creates a level playing field where the CEO and the intern are both simply walkers on a path. This can dissolve hierarchical barriers and encourage more open communication afterward. Furthermore, the state of relaxed focus induced by the walk is known to stimulate creative thinking and problem-solving. Teams often emerge from the experience with a renewed sense of shared purpose and unexpected solutions to stubborn challenges, precisely because they were given the mental space to let their minds wander and connect in new ways. History offers a beautiful precedent for this communal use of labyrinthine structures. In medieval Europe, many villages maintained turf mazes, large designs cut into the grass of the village green. These were not solitary meditation tools but centers of community life. Historical records and folklore suggest they were used for seasonal festivals, playful races, and even courtship rituals. On a sunny holiday, the entire village might gather to watch young people race through the turf-cut path, or they might process through it together in a solemn ritual to bless the land. These communal mazes served as a powerful social glue, reinforcing shared identity, celebrating the turning of the seasons, and providing a common ground for all members of the community to interact and connect. Perhaps the most poignant modern examples come from communities grappling with collective trauma. In the aftermath of a natural disaster, a school tragedy, or a period of civil unrest, organized labyrinth walks have been used to help people process grief that is too large for words. In one powerful case, a town recovering from a devastating wildfire set up a temporary labyrinth in a community center. Residents walked it together, not needing to articulate their shared loss, fear, and uncertainty. The simple, rhythmic act of walking side by side provided a container for their collective sorrow and a tangible symbol of their shared path toward recovery. It didn't erase the pain, but it offered a way to acknowledge it together, strengthening the community's resilience and reinforcing that no one was walking the difficult road alone. So we are left with a deeply personal and inviting question. Look at your own web of relationships, your family, your circle of friends, your workplace team, or your wider community. How might the simple, shared act of walking a path together change the dynamics of that group? Could it open up new channels of nonverbal communication with a teenager who has withdrawn? Could it build a deeper sense of trust and psychological safety among colleagues? Might it help a community bridge its differences by focusing on a common, peaceful experience? The shared labyrinth invites us to remember that while our inner journeys are our own, we don't have to make them in isolation. Sometimes the most powerful way to find our way is to walk together, discovering that our individual paths are woven into a larger, collective tapestry of human experience. Consider this remarkable finding from modern neuroscience. When you're deeply engrossed in navigating a maze, whether on paper or in a virtual world, functional MRI scans light up like a constellation, revealing a symphony of activity deep within your brain. The hippocampus, that seahorse-shaped region crucial for memory and spatial navigation, goes into overdrive, actively constructing a mental map of the twists and turns. Simultaneously, studies show a notable quieting in the amygdala, the brain's alarm bell for fear and stress. This powerful neural shift reveals something profound. The act of focused navigation doesn't just train the brain, it can actually calm it, transforming anxiety into engaged concentration. This is the brain actively building order from chaos, a biological process that has captivated researchers for decades. The work of neuroscientists like Elena Maguire has been pivotal in understanding this phenomenon. Her renowned research on London taxi drivers who must memorize the city's impossibly complex labyrinth of streets found that their hippocampi were significantly larger than average. This wasn't just a correlation, it was direct evidence of neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. Navigating a maze is a masterclass in triggering this plasticity. Every decision at a fork, every recalculation after a dead end, forges new pathways between brain cells. This strengthens the neural networks responsible for problem-solving, strategic planning, and cognitive flexibility. It's a full brain workout that enhances the very architecture of the mind, building cognitive reserve that can help delay age-related decline and protect against neurodegenerative diseases. This mental exertion is rewarded by our own internal chemistry. Successfully finding the path to the center or the exit triggers the brain's reward system to release a surge of dopamine, that potent neurotransmitter associated with pleasure, motivation, and learning. This is why that moment of solving a difficult puzzle feels so deeply satisfying. It's a biological reward for successful problem solving, encouraging us to seek out and overcome future challenges. This dopamine hit reinforces the learning process, making the cognitive lessons of the maze stick. It's the same system that makes video games so engaging, but harnessed here for a fundamental cognitive task. The neurological ballet of maze solving involves a sophisticated division of labor across different brain regions. While the hippocampus is busy charting the spatial layout, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of executive function, is heavily engaged in decision-making, planning ahead, and holding the sequence of turns in working memory. It's the part of the brain that strategizes, that remembers which paths have already been tried and failed. Meanwhile, the amygdala's reduced activity is equally important. Its quieting allows for clearer, less emotionally reactive thinking. When this fear center is less active, we are better able to tolerate the frustration of wrong turns and persist in the face of challenge, a crucial skill both inside and outside the maze. The practical applications of this research are both wide-ranging and deeply encouraging. For instance, studies involving older adults have shown that regularly engaging with maze-based video games or puzzles can lead to measurable improvements in memory recall and processing speed, effectively turning back the clock on certain aspects of cognitive aging. For individuals with ADHD, the structured challenge of a maze can provide a focused task that helps train attention and impulse control, offering a tangible goal that rewards sustained concentration. These activities are far more than simple pastimes. They are targeted exercises that can enhance mental agility and resilience across the lifespan. So what does this mean for your own brain health? Engaging with mazes in any form is like taking your cognitive functions to the gym. It's a way to actively maintain your memory, sharpen your problem-solving skills, and build mental stamina. It teaches your brain to remain calm and strategic under pressure, to view dead ends not as failures but as valuable information. This scientific perspective gives us a whole new layer of appreciation for the ancient symbols we've been exploring. It reveals that the labyrinth is not only a metaphor for the psyche's journey, but also a literal tool that mirrors and enhances the very workings of the brain itself, a bridge between symbolic meaning and biological function that has been waiting in plain sight for millennia. While the Minotaur's labyrinth may be the most famous, it is far from the only one woven into the world's mythological fabric. Journey north to the icy realms of Norse mythology, and you'll find Svartalfheim, the subterranean world of the dwarves. This was no simple cave. It was described as a vast labyrinthine network of tunnels and forges where these master smiths toiled in secrecy. The maze here symbolizes something different from the Greek terror. It represents hidden knowledge, profound craftsmanship, and the intricate, often inaccessible, processes of creation itself. To navigate this underworld was to seek out wisdom and power that was not meant for the casual visitor, guarded by beings who were both cunning and reclusive. This theme of the maze as a realm of illusion and profound truth appears again, halfway across the world, in the ancient Hindu concept of Maya. In tales like those of the mythical Maya Danava, an architect of the gods, we hear of palaces designed with endless, shifting corridors and illusions that confound the senses. These stories are not just about physical confusion, they are deep philosophical metaphors. The labyrinthine palace represents Maya itself, the cosmic illusion that the material world is the ultimate reality. Navigating its bewildering passages symbolizes the soul's difficult journey to see through this illusion, to pierce the veil of deception and perceive the true, divine unity that lies beneath the surface of things. The maze becomes the very structure of perceived reality, and the spiritual quest is to find the way out of it into enlightenment. The comparative mythologist Wendy Doniger has spent her career tracing these universal threads. She suggests that these recurring maze motifs are not mere coincidence but speak to a fundamental human need to give shape to the most challenging aspects of our existence. Myths are stories about the ways in which the human mind gives meaning to the world, she might argue, and the labyrinth is one of its most powerful shapes for meaning. It gives a tangible form to the internal struggles we all face, the confusion of life's choices, the search for hidden truths within ourselves, and the transformative journey we must all undertake from ignorance to knowledge. This universal pattern emerges with stunning clarity in the spiritual traditions of indigenous peoples. For the Navajo, there is the sacred pollen path. This is not a physical maze but a spiritual one, a concept of living in harmony and balance, guided by beauty and ritual. The path is life itself, with its many twists and turns, and to walk it correctly is to navigate a complex moral and ethical landscape, making choices that maintain harmony with all of creation. Similarly, the Aboriginal Australian Dreamtime stories describe the ancestor beings who traveled across the barren land, singing it into existence. Their journeys created the Songlines, a sprawling, invisible labyrinth of pathways that connect sacred sites across the entire continent. These songlines are a navigational system, a historical record, a legal document, and a spiritual map all at once. To learn the songs is to learn how to navigate both the vast Australian outback and the complex labyrinth of life's responsibilities and connections to the past. Across the ocean, the Celts spoke of the otherworld, a realm often accessed through burial mounds or fog-shrouded lakes. This was not a place of punishment, but a parallel universe of immense beauty and magic, yet it was frequently described as a labyrinthine land where time flowed differently and paths could vanish behind you. To enter was a perilous undertaking, for finding your way back to the world of the living was never guaranteed. Likewise, in Aztec mythology, the underworld of Mictlan was a terrifying 9-layered maze through which souls had to journey for 4 years, overcoming a series of dreadful challenges before reaching final rest. Each level presented a new trial, from rushing rivers to fields of obsidian wind, a stark reflection of the Aztec belief in a perilous afterlife earned through earthly struggle. So what is the profound commonality we can draw from the dwarf forges of the north, the illusory palaces of India, and the sung pathways of Australia? They all reveal the labyrinth as a fundamental human tool for understanding. It is a map for the soul's journey, a model for the mind's confusion, and a mirror for the cultural values that guide us. These stories teach us that the psychological journey is universal, but the tools for navigation are wonderfully diverse. Whether it's the dwarven craft of the Norsemen, the philosophical insight of the Hindu sages, or the ancestral songs of the first Australians. They assure us that feeling lost is not a personal failing, but part of a shared human experience, and every culture has its own version of Ariadne's thread to offer, its own way of finding the center and ultimately finding our way back home. There is a profound duality at the heart of every labyrinth, an ability to evoke both breathtaking awe and primal fear within the same twisting corridor. This emotional push and pull taps directly into the 18th century concept of the sublime, as articulated by philosopher Edmund Burke. He defined the sublime as the powerful and often terrifying beauty we experience in the face of something vast, complex, and beyond our immediate comprehension, a description that fits the experience of a great maze perfectly. The sublime is that delicious shiver of fear and wonder we feel staring into a starry night or at the edge of a great canyon. It is the thrill of being humbled by something greater than ourselves. Maze designers have been master architects of this feeling for centuries, meticulously balancing aesthetic beauty with raw emotion to craft experiences that can either calm the soul or set the heart racing. This delicate balance is achieved through a sophisticated toolkit of design elements. Symmetry, for instance, can create a sense of divine order and harmony, as seen in the precise geometric patterns of classical labyrinths. The famous Baroque garden mazes designed by André Le Nôtre for King Louis XIV at Versailles were not just puzzles. They were extravagant displays of power and control over nature, their intricate, symmetrical patterns meant to reflect the absolute order of the Sun King's reign. Le Nôtre himself saw these designs as an extension of architecture, stating that the goal was to create a green palace without walls, where the artistry lay in manipulating perspective and scale to astonish and delight the courtiers who wandered through them. The sheer scale of these living monuments was intended to make the individual feel both impressed by the grandeur and playfully insignificant within it. Conversely, the deliberate absence of symmetry can be used to generate unease and disorientation. This is the principle behind many modern horror mazes in theme parks, where paths are intentionally uneven, walls lean at disturbing angles, and the layout defies any sense of logical pattern. Here, the aesthetic is one of controlled chaos, designed to trigger our most basic fears of being lost and vulnerable. The materials chosen are just as important as the layout. The soft, fragrant boxwood of a traditional hedge maze feels organic and alive, its rustling leaves and dappled sunlight creating a sensory experience that is often serene and meditative. Contrast this with the cold, hard surfaces of a mirror maze or a darkened attraction made of rough-hewn plywood. These materials feel artificial, confining, and unsettling, amplifying the fear of entrapment far more than any hedge ever could. Light and sound are the invisible brushes with which maze designers paint the final layer of emotion. Imagine the profound peace of walking a solitary path through a Japanese garden maze at dusk, where the only sounds are the crunch of gravel underfoot and the gentle trickle of a hidden stream, and the light is soft and diffuse, casting long, peaceful shadows. This environment is meticulously crafted to promote a Zen-like state of mindfulness. Now picture the exact opposite: the strobe lights, sudden blasts of sound, and distorted whispers that echo through a Halloween horror maze. These elements are not random. They are expertly calibrated sensory assaults designed to shatter any sense of control, keeping the visitor in a perpetual state of jumpy anticipation. The aesthetics of the maze are therefore a complete package, a multisensory experience where every detail, from the texture under your fingertips to the sounds in your ears, is orchestrated to make you feel something very specific. This incredible range is evident when we trace the historical evolution of maze styles. The Baroque complexity of Versailles, with its ornate, multicursal design, was meant to entertain and showcase wealth. The minimalist modern designs of today, like those using low lines of grass or etched into flat stone, often swing back toward the ancient, unicursal labyrinth, favoring a meditative, singular path over confusing choices. They use clean lines and open sightlines to create a feeling of spacious contemplation rather than claustrophobic confusion. The role of nature itself is a key differentiator. A hedge maze is a partnership with a living entity. It changes with the seasons, it smells of rain and earth, and it requires patience and care to maintain. This connection to the natural world inherently softens the experience, making it feel more like a journey than a test. So we are left to ponder the powerful, personal question these designs pose to us. What emotions surface when you imagine yourself within these different spaces? Does your mind lean toward the serene beauty of a circular path leading to a tranquil center, or does it thrill to the chilling potential of a wrong turn in the dark? Your answer likely reveals something about your own relationship with control, chaos, and beauty. It shows that the maze is far more than a pattern on the ground. It is a carefully constructed emotional landscape, and we are the walkers who bring it to life with our every step, our every feeling, and our every turn. We barely even notice it, but the language we use every single day is saturated with the imagery of the labyrinth. We speak of being lost in a maze of thoughts, of needing to find our way out of a difficult situation, or hitting a dead end in a project. These aren't just casual turns of phrase. They are tiny windows into the deepest architecture of human cognition, revealing how instinctively we rely on the maze as a metaphor to make sense of our own mental and emotional experiences. The cognitive linguist George Lakoff revolutionized our understanding of this with his work on conceptual metaphors, arguing that our most abstract thinking is grounded in physical experience. We understand the difficult concept of a complex problem by comparing it to the physical experience of being lost in a maze. This metaphorical framework is so deeply embedded that it shapes not just how we talk about our lives, but how we actually perceive and navigate them. Our minds are constantly creating these cognitive maps, and when the terrain gets tough, we naturally describe it with the vocabulary of the labyrinth. This phenomenon isn't confined to English. It's a fascinating cross-cultural constant. In Spanish, you might say, estar en un laberinto, to describe a state of utter confusion, almost identical to the English expression. In German, the phrase sich verlieren means to lose one's way, both literally and figuratively, carrying the same weight of disorientation. And in Japanese, the word mero can refer to both a physical maze and a complicated, hard-to-solve problem. This global linguistic thread suggests a universal human experience, the feeling of being mentally or emotionally trapped in a complex system with no clear exit. It is so fundamental that cultures around the world have independently reached for the same powerful symbol to give it a name. Our shared vocabulary of confusion is ironically a point of profound connection. Literature has long been a rich repository for this kind of metaphorical thinking. Centuries before we were talking about the corporate maze, William Shakespeare was masterfully weaving this imagery into his plays. In The Comedy of Errors, the entire plot is a glorious labyrinth of mistaken identities, a tangled web of confusion where characters constantly run into dead ends of misunderstanding until the final, satisfying unraveling. The play itself is a verbal maze for the audience to navigate, mirroring the character's own bewilderment. This tradition continues in modern business jargon, where the metaphor is employed with relentless precision. We talk about navigating the corporate ladder, a clear vertical maze with its own set of rules and potential missteps. We strategize about finding a path to market for a new product, or complain about getting stuck in a silo, which is essentially a professional dead end. This language frames our careers not as straight lines, but as intricate puzzles we must solve, complete with minotaurs in the form of difficult bosses and Ariadne's threads in the form of mentors and strategic plans. Perhaps the most poignant use of this metaphor is in the deeply personal realm of self-help and emotional discourse. We speak of threading our way through our feelings, imagining our emotions as a tangled skein of yarn that we must carefully and patiently unwind without breaking. We describe a period of grief or depression as a dark maze with no visible exit. People will often use this language instinctively when describing a rocky relationship. "We just keep going in circles," they might say, or "I feel like I'm constantly hitting a wall with them." These aren't just cliches, they are authentic, heartfelt attempts to articulate the profound experience of emotional complexity and the struggle for clarity. An anecdote from a relationship counselor illustrates this perfectly. A couple on the brink of separation described their years of arguments as walking the same exhausting path in a maze every day. The breakthrough came when they realized they needed to stop retracing their steps and together find a completely new route. The metaphor gave them a shared framework to understand their struggle and visualize a solution. So this invites a moment of quiet reflection. Listen to your own words over the next day. What are the mazes you talk about without even thinking? Do you describe your weekly schedule as a rat race, a frantic and repetitive maze? When facing a tough decision, do you talk about weighing your options, imagining yourself standing at a fork in the path? Your personal lexicon of labyrinths reveals what you find complex, challenging, or confusing in your own life. It shows the problems your brain is working hard to map and navigate. And in recognizing these metaphors, you gain a powerful tool, the ability to reframe the maze. Is it a prison of confusion, or is it a challenging journey you are equipped to walk with your own inner thread to guide you? This awareness of the language we use is the first step in understanding how we think, and ultimately how we can find our way. The journey of the maze from sacred symbol to secular puzzle is a fascinating reflection of our own evolving consciousness. In their earliest incarnations, like the ritualistic designs of Minoan Crete, labyrinths were deeply spiritual tools intended to contain monsters or guide initiates through a symbolic underworld. They were not for entertainment, they were for transformation, a physical prayer etched into the earth or stone. But as human societies shifted, so too did the purpose of these winding paths. The great turning point began in the medieval era, where the labyrinth found a new home within the soaring naves of Gothic cathedrals like Chartres. Here, its symbolism was Christianized. It became a surrogate pilgrimage for those who could not travel to Jerusalem, a path of penitence and devotion where every step was a metaphor for the soul's difficult journey toward God. It was still sacred, but its function was becoming more personal, more focused on an individual's embodied experience of faith. The Renaissance and the ensuing Age of Enlightenment then catalyzed a profound secularization. As human reason and scientific inquiry began to challenge religious dogma, the maze underwent a parallel transformation. No longer just a path for pious feet, it became a challenge for the agile mind. This was the era that gave birth to the elaborate hedge maze, which flourished on the estates of European aristocracy. Historian Kern Herman notes that this shift wasn't merely aesthetic, it was a powerful socio-cultural statement. These living puzzles, like the famous one at Hampton Court Palace, were symbols of control over nature, over space, and by extension, over one's own destiny through wit and reason. They were places of leisure, courtly intrigue, and playful confusion, reflecting a new worldview where the universe was a complex mechanism to be understood and mastered, not just a mystery to be revered. Technology played a crucial role in democratizing this new vision of the maze. The invention of the printing press allowed labyrinth designs to be mass-produced not as sacred blueprints, but as puzzles. They began appearing in books and newspapers, transforming from a large-scale architectural experience into a solitary, intellectual pastime anyone could enjoy at their kitchen table. Concurrently, the age of colonialism and global trade acted as a cultural diffusion pump, spreading European maze designs around the world while also introducing Western cultures to other forms of labyrinthine art, like the intricate patterns of Islamic tiles or the spiritual mandalas of Asia. This cross-pollination further enriched the symbolic language of the maze, blending sacred geometry with secular play. The Victorian era perfected the maze as a symbol of leisure and class. The vast, intricate hedge mazes built on country estates were not just gardens, they were stages for social performance. They reflected the values of the leisure class, a love of genteel amusement, a display of wealth that could afford such frivolous use of land, and a fascination with curated, controlled nature. A stroll through a maze was a popular romantic outing, a slightly thrilling adventure that was perfectly safe and respectable. This period firmly cemented the maze in the cultural imagination as a site of pleasure and puzzle solving, a far cry from its terrifying Minoan origins. Our modern era has performed a remarkable synthesis, weaving these threads of sacred and secular back together. The 20th and 21st centuries have seen a powerful revival of the labyrinth's spiritual dimension through the wellness movement, with walking labyrinths now common features in hospitals, parks, and retreat centers for meditation and stress relief. Simultaneously, the digital age has created a thrilling new frontier, the virtual maze. Video game worlds are filled with elaborate dungeons and puzzle levels that players navigate, while the very architecture of the internet and social media algorithms create invisible, data-driven labyrinths that guide our choices and shape our realities. These digital constructions are the direct descendants of both the sacred path and the secular puzzle, challenging our minds while often evoking the same awe and confusion as their ancient predecessors. This entire evolution prompts a compelling question about the future. If the maze meaning has transformed from monster prison to meditation tool to digital domain, what comes next? As we grapple with artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and concepts of consciousness itself, how will future generations reinterpret this ancient symbol? Will we build AI labyrinths to test machine learning? Will we experience fully immersive VR mazes as a form of therapy or extreme sport? The maze has always held a mirror to our greatest aspirations and fears. Its endless adaptability suggests it will continue to be a vital tool for understanding whatever new complexities the human mind decides to create next. Now step into a world where the walls are made of light and the Minotaur is a line of code. The digital age has not just replicated the ancient labyrinth, it has reimagined it, constructing vast virtual worlds where the rules of physics and perception are entirely rewritten. Games like the seminal Myst or the mind-bending worlds of virtual reality are the new cathedrals of confusion, offering experiences that are both exhilarating and deeply disorienting. In these digital domains, the maze is no longer a static structure of stone or hedge. It is a living, reactive environment. A wall might dissolve at a touch, a corridor might reconfigure itself based on your heart rate, and the very puzzles you solve can have ethical consequences for the digital inhabitants within the game. This evolution transforms the maze from a simple test of navigation into a profound challenge of morality, empathy, and our very understanding of reality. This expansion of maze symbolism extends far beyond the screen and into the very architecture of our daily digital lives. Consider the labyrinthine nature of the modern internet itself. We are all constant Theseuses, navigating a maze that is actively designed to keep us within its walls. Social media algorithms are perhaps the most potent modern example of a digital labyrinth. These complex, invisible systems curate a personalized path for each user, presenting a feed of content designed to maximize engagement. The danger, as tech philosopher Sherry Turkle has explored, is that these algorithmic paths can quickly become echo chambers. Each click, each like, each second of watch time is a turn down a corridor that reinforces our existing beliefs and preferences, building walls that make it harder and harder to encounter challenging ideas or divergent viewpoints. This digital maze doesn't just reflect our identity, it actively shapes and confines it, creating a hall of mirrors where we only ever see a distorted reflection of ourselves and the world. The forms these digital mazes take are as diverse as their purposes. On one end of the spectrum, we have intricately designed game levels in titles like The Legend of Zelda or Dark Souls, which are masterclasses in spatial puzzle design, teaching players perseverance and strategic thinking in a high-stakes fantasy context. On another, we have data visualization labyrinths, where complex information sets like global climate models or the neural pathways of the brain are rendered into beautiful, interactive three-dimensional structures that scientists and researchers can literally walk through using VR technology to spot patterns and connections that would be invisible on a flat screen. And then there is the emerging frontier of AI-generated art, where users can prompt an artificial intelligence to create an infinite number of unique, personalized labyrinths based on a mood, a memory, or a single word, offering a stunning new form of abstract, interactive self-portraiture. The psychological impact of navigating these digital realms is a double-edged sword. On one hand, they offer incredible opportunities for learning and cognitive development. Educational escape room simulations are now used to teach everything from history to chemistry, forcing students to collaborate and apply knowledge in a pressurized, immersive environment that makes learning thrilling. The intense focus required to solve a complex video game puzzle can induce a state of flow, providing a healthy escape from stress and building real-world problem-solving resilience. Yet there is a well-documented shadow side. The compulsion to keep exploring to achieve the next reward can tip into behavioral addiction, where the real world begins to pale in comparison to the curated challenges of the virtual one. The ethical considerations are immense. When a maze is designed by a corporation whose primary motive is to capture and hold our attention, can the experience ever be truly for our benefit? Are we the heroes of these stories, or are we the minotaurs, the trapped creatures whose engagement is the product being sold? This brings us to a question that is becoming increasingly urgent. As we spend more of our lives navigating these expertly crafted digital labyrinths, how are they influencing our fundamental sense of what is real? When the feedback loops of social media validation feel more tangible than a conversation with a neighbor, or when the victory over a digital beast provides a sharper dopamine hit than completing a real-world project, our internal compass can begin to falter. The digital maze doesn't just entertain us, it trains us. It teaches us to expect immediate rewards, to prefer simplified narratives over complex realities, and to value the efficiency of an algorithm over the messy serendipity of human discovery. The ultimate challenge of the 21st century labyrinth may not be finding the exit, but remembering there is a world outside it worth returning to. Imagine taking this timeless symbol of introspection and making it a living part of your daily life, right in your own backyard or even on your living room floor. You don't need a team of stonemasons or a grand cathedral. The power of the labyrinth is waiting to be unlocked with simple, accessible materials. A length of rope can outline a graceful path on the grass. A collection of smooth stones or seashells can mark the turns. For a temporary indoor version, a roll of painter's tape or a piece of sidewalk chalk on a paved patio can create a perfect path for a walking meditation. This act of creation is itself the first step of the journey, a quiet, focused ritual that transforms an ordinary space into a sanctuary for self-discovery. When choosing a design, two classic patterns offer a wonderful starting point for any beginner. The classical seven-circuit labyrinth, with its ancient, spiraling simplicity, is one of the easiest to construct and walk. Its single path winds back and forth in a pattern that is both intuitive and deeply calming. For those drawn to a more intricate and historically rich design, the Chartres-style labyrinth, based on the famous cathedral floor, offers an 11-circuit pattern with a beautiful, rosette center. While more complex to lay out, its symbolic depth is profound. Expert labyrinth facilitator Robert Ferre offers a crucial tip for first-timers: start with size. A comfortable walking path should be at least 1 foot wide, and the entire labyrinth should fit within a space where you can still feel contained and focused. A circle roughly 15 to 20 feet in diameter is often ideal for a personal practice. The construction process can be a meditation in itself. Begin by finding the center of your chosen space and marking it. From there, using a simple guide you can find online or in a book, you'll work your way outward, laying your materials to create the circuits. There's no need for perfection. The slight imperfections in a hand-made labyrinth often add to its unique character and charm. As you place each stone or length of rope, you can infuse the act with intention, perhaps focusing on a quality you wish to cultivate: peace, clarity, or gratitude. Robert Ferre also suggests incorporating natural elements not just as markers, but as part of the experience. Placing a fragrant lavender plant near the entrance, or using different colored stones to mark the quarters of the design, can engage the senses more fully and deepen the connection to the natural world during your walk. Once your path is complete, the practice of walking it begins. There are no rigid rules, only invitations. You might walk it slowly and deliberately, synchronizing your breath with your steps, inhaling for 2 steps, exhaling for 4. The key is to surrender to the path, allowing its twists and turns to guide your body while your mind gradually stills. You can set a specific intention at the entrance, to release a particular worry, to seek insight on a decision, or simply to be fully present. Many people find that walking the labyrinth helps to quiet the incessant chatter of the mind, allowing deeper, more intuitive knowing to surface. It's a moving prayer, a body-based meditation that can unlock creative blocks, soothe anxiety, and offer a tangible sense of navigating through life's complexities. This practice becomes even more powerful when shared. Families can create a small labyrinth together, turning its construction and use into a unique bonding activity that teaches children a gentle form of mindfulness without any pressure. Artists and community groups often embark on collaborative projects, painting massive canvas labyrinths that can be traveled to schools, parks, and festivals, bringing this ancient tool for peace into the heart of the community. The act of walking a labyrinth with others, even in silence, creates a powerful, unspoken bond, a shared journey that acknowledges our individual paths while reminding us that we do not walk alone. So as you consider the possibility of creating your own sacred path, ask yourself not about the how, but the why. What is the intention you would carry with you onto that first turn? What quiet whisper from within are you hoping to hear more clearly when you finally reach the center and pause, having found your way? But what if the maze is more than just a psychological model or a cultural story? What if these twisting paths point toward the most fundamental questions of all? Does existence itself have a center, a final meaning we are meant to discover? Or is the purpose found solely in the act of walking, in the journey with all its wrong turns and surprises? This is where our exploration moves from the mind into the realm of pure philosophy, asking if the labyrinth is ultimately a metaphor for a universe that is structured, chaotic, or perhaps beautifully both. The Argentine writer Jorge Luis Borges, whose stories are themselves intricate literary mazes, once offered a haunting insight. The labyrinth is a structure that we must unravel even as we are lost in it. This captures the essential human dilemma. We are compelled to seek meaning and pattern even within a reality that may fundamentally resist a single, simple explanation. This quest for meaning splits into profoundly different philosophical pathways. On one road, we find the existentialists like Albert Camus, who saw the human condition as inherently absurd. We are beings who crave order and purpose, thrown into a universe that offers no clear answers. For Camus, life is the ultimate labyrinth, and the Minotaur at its center is the chilling silence of a godless cosmos. His response, however, was not despair but rebellion. The only way to navigate this absurd labyrinth, he argued, is to embrace the journey itself with passion and defiance, to find joy and meaning in the very act of walking, of experiencing, and of persisting in the face of the unknown. The victory is not in finding an exit that doesn't exist, but in the dignity of the search. Turn onto another path, and you encounter Eastern philosophical traditions like Buddhism and Taoism, which offer a different interpretation of the center. Here, the labyrinth is not a cruel joke but an illusion to be seen through the world of Maya, or earthly distraction. The winding path of spiritual practice, through meditation and mindful living, is a process of stilling the mind enough to see the intricate patterns for what they are, temporary, interconnected, and empty of a separate, permanent self. Reaching the center isn't about finding an answer. It's about realizing there was never a separate seeker to begin with, dissolving into a state of enlightenment where the distinction between the path, the walker, and the destination simply vanishes. This ancient debate between free will and destiny finds a perfect stage within the maze walls. Is navigating the labyrinth a testament to our own choices and cleverness, our ability to choose one corridor over another? Or are we merely acting out a predetermined path, discovering a route that was already laid out for us, our illusion of choice just a part of the design? This tension is at the heart of every great maze narrative, from the Greek fates who spun a thread of destiny to the modern scientific debate between determinism and free will. Perhaps the most satisfying answer lies somewhere in the middle. The labyrinth has a fixed structure, presenting us with a set of challenges and dead ends, but it is our unique choices, our personal reactions to those obstacles, that define the quality and nature of our journey. Astoundingly, modern science has begun to find the fingerprints of the labyrinth in the very fabric of reality. Physicists working on theories of the multiverse use the concept of a cosmic landscape, a vast, multidimensional maze of possible universes, each with different physical constants. Our universe is just one path that was taken, one route that led to a stable, life-supporting existence amidst countless dead ends. Even more compelling is the field of fractal geometry, which reveals that complex, labyrinthine patterns repeat themselves at every scale of the natural world, from the branching of our neurons and blood vessels to the colossal structure of galaxy clusters. This suggests that the maze is not merely a human invention. It may be a fundamental principle of cosmic organization, a pattern written into the universe itself, echoing from the microscopic to the galactic. So when we draw a labyrinth or feel lost in one, we might be tapping into a deep, structural truth about the nature of existence, a pattern of complexity that is woven into everything from our minds to the cosmos. This brings us to a moment of quiet, personal reflection. Your own approach to the idea of a maze, whether you see it as a challenge to be conquered, a meditation to be experienced, or a trap to be feared, reveals something profound about your worldview. Do you believe the universe is ultimately knowable, a puzzle that can be solved with enough intelligence and effort? Or do you see it as a beautiful, mysterious process to be embraced, where the goal is not to escape but to engage more deeply with every twist and turn? There is no right or wrong answer, only a clearer understanding of the lens through which you view your own journey. This philosophical inquiry into the maze doesn't provide easy answers, but it enriches the questions, showing that this ancient symbol is far more than a myth or a game. It is a mirror held up to the deepest mysteries of life itself. After wandering through the intricate corridors of myth, mind, and culture, a stunning clarity emerges from the chaos. The countless maze legends whispered across millennia, from the stone prisons of Crete to the digital dungeons of today, are not separate stories but a single, profound reflection of the human psyche itself. They form a universal mirror, showing us that the architecture of the labyrinth is the architecture of our own inner world, a map of our deepest fears, our most potent desires, and our eternal, unshakable quest to find meaning within the confusion. These ancient narratives, though dressed in the garb of monster and myth, consistently reveal three essential pillars of the human experience: the need for resilience when navigating life's inevitable challenges, the courage for self-awareness required to confront our own inner minotaurs, and the profound power of connection we find through shared rituals and guidance. The collective wisdom of experts, from Carl Jung's exploration of archetypes to modern neuroscientific studies, converges on this very point. Jung saw the labyrinth as a central symbol for the journey of individuation, the difficult path we must all walk to integrate the disparate parts of ourselves and achieve wholeness. He would argue that the Minotaur is not an external beast to be slain, but the embodiment of our own shadow, the repressed and often frightening aspects of our personality that we must face with courage and compassion to become complete. Modern neuroscience provides a stunning biological echo of this ancient insight. Brain imaging studies show that the act of navigating a maze actively engages the hippocampus, our center for memory and spatial reasoning, while simultaneously calming the amygdala, the seat of fear and anxiety. This suggests that the metaphorical act of finding our way is not just a spiritual concept but a neurological process, a literal recalibration of the brain from a state of panic to one of focused, strategic calm. Our biology confirms the wisdom of the myth. To navigate complexity, we must quiet our fear and trust our capacity to map a path forward. From this fusion of ancient symbolism and modern science, we can distill powerful, practical lessons for our own lives. The first is the necessity of embracing uncertainty. The winding, unpredictable path of the labyrinth teaches us that dead ends are not failures, but invaluable information. They are an integral part of the journey, forcing us to adapt, rethink our strategy, and develop the resilience that only comes from encountering and overcoming obstacles. The second key lesson is the critical importance of guidance. No hero succeeds alone. Theseus had Ariadne's thread, just as we need our own supports, whether it's the trusted advice of a friend, the structured help of a therapist, the clarity found in meditation, or the unwavering voice of our own intuition. This thread is our tether to hope and reality when we feel most lost in the dark. And finally, there is the profound therapeutic value of the walk itself. The physical act of moving through a labyrinth or any mindful, repetitive motion grounds us in our bodies and pulls us out of the frantic loops of our anxious thoughts. It is a form of moving meditation that proves the journey itself, with all its twists and turns, is where transformation truly happens. Consider the story of a woman grappling with severe anxiety following a major life transition. The relentless what-if scenarios in her mind had built a maze of fear she felt trapped within. Upon a therapist's suggestion, she began visiting a local park that had a simple, painted labyrinth. At first, the walks felt silly, but she persisted. With each visit, the physical act of putting one foot in front of the other on a predetermined path became a powerful metaphor. She wasn't making choices, she was simply following the way laid out before her. This quieted her need for control. Halfway through, in the center, she would pause and breathe, acknowledging her fears without being consumed by them. Walking back out, she felt a gradual sense of carrying that calm back into her world. She was, in a very real sense, reenacting the myth of Theseus, using the labyrinth not to fight a monster, but to gently befriend her own anxiety, integrating it rather than trying to destroy it. Her thread was the path itself, and her victory was not an escape, but a newfound ability to walk through her fears with presence and grace. This is the ultimate revelation the maze offers us. It's an invitation to reframe our entire relationship with challenge and confusion. The question is no longer, how do I get out of this difficult situation? But how do I walk through it? What tools do I already possess to navigate this stretch of the path? The labyrinth's wisdom tells us that the center of our challenges often holds our greatest treasure, a deeper understanding of our own strength, a more compassionate view of our struggles, or a clearer vision of what truly matters. So as we prepare to step out of this exploration and back into the daily labyrinths of our own lives, carry this question with you. Look at the complex situation you are facing right now, whether it's a personal dilemma, a professional hurdle, or an internal struggle. How can you apply the timeless wisdom of the maze? Can you embrace the uncertainty of the next turn? Can you identify your Ariadne's thread, the person, practice, or inner voice that can guide you? And can you remember that the very act of walking, of persevering, is itself a transformative act of courage? The labyrinth does not promise a life without walls, but it does offer a timeless map for walking through them, reminding us that every path, no matter how winding, ultimately leads us back to ourselves. And so our journey through the whispers in the labyrinth draws to a close, but the echoes of its winding paths will linger long after. We began in the shadowy corridors of ancient Crete, confronting the Minotaur, and ventured across continents and centuries, discovering that these intricate patterns are far more than stone and myth. They are a profound mirror held up to the deepest chambers of the human soul. From the spiritual mandalas of the East to the digital dungeons of the modern age, the maze has consistently revealed our innate, universal drive to navigate complexity, to seek meaning in the confusion, and to find growth not in spite of our challenges, but because of them. This exploration has shown us that the labyrinth is not a puzzle to be escaped, but a transformative journey to be embraced, a sacred map for the most important exploration we will ever undertake, the journey into ourselves. We've wandered through the key themes that make this symbol so enduring. We saw how psychological archetypes, as revealed by thinkers like Carl Jung, frame the labyrinth as a map for individuation, a journey to confront our inner shadows and integrate our fragmented selves into a state of wholeness. We celebrated the stunning cultural diversity of this symbol, from the Hopi Mother Earth design to the medieval cathedral floors, each culture weaving its own values and fears into the universal pattern of the path. We uncovered the tangible, therapeutic benefits of labyrinth walking, a practice that modern science affirms can calm the amygdala, engage the hippocampus, and guide us from a state of anxious fear to one of focused calm. And we've seen its powerful modern relevance, from the echo chambers of our digital lives to the community labyrinths fostering connection and healing in a fragmented world. Throughout it all, one truth has remained constant: the maze's timeless ability to inspire courage and offer healing, providing a structure for our chaos and a metaphor for our most human experiences. The writer Anais Nin offered a beautiful key to understanding all of this when she said, "We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are." The labyrinth is the ultimate proof of this. It has no single meaning. To the terrified, it is a prison of fear. To the seeker, it is a path to God. To the playful, it is a delightful puzzle. To the broken-hearted, it is a container for grief. The maze does not change, we do, and in walking its path, we are given a rare opportunity to see ourselves, our fears, our strategies, our resilience reflected back at us with unflinching honesty. The monster in the center is always, ultimately, a part of us waiting to be understood, and the thread that guides us is always a connection to our own inner wisdom or the support we allow ourselves to receive. This is not an ending, but an invitation for your own journey to begin. Let these whispers be your guide. Perhaps you will seek out a local labyrinth to walk, feeling the shift in your own mind and body with each deliberate step. Maybe you'll simply spend a moment reflecting on the maze-like dreams that visit you in the night, wondering what inner landscape they are asking you to explore. I would love to hear what you discover. Share your stories and insights in the comments below. This channel is itself a community, a shared path of discovery. If you found value in this deep dive into the symbols that shape our lives, consider subscribing for more journeys into the heart of mythology and psychology. There are always more layers to uncover, more ancient wisdom waiting to be heard. So take your thread, whatever form it may take, and step confidently into your own labyrinthine journey. The path is waiting, and every turn holds the potential